Hello, everyone. It's Friday. It's Chat with Mac. We're glad to have you join us. For those of you that have been watching all this time, once again, thank you so much. And for those of you that are new to what we do, welcome, welcome, welcome. It's Friday, Nadeem, and it's been a week. It has really been a week. It's been quite actually on my front. It's been a good week. I've had some great conversations. We're
Yeah.
we're really uh yeah, we've had some great conversations. It was good. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've been traveling this week, so it was a shorter week for you. But I mean, I think um, as far as output goes, it's the same as any other week. So I think
Yeah.
so if you had full week worth of time and you keep at the same pace, I think you're going to do much better. So next week
Yeah.
is going to be great.
Yeah, next week's gonna be good. I think it's definitely gonna be good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, so I had a question for you. I don't think um people know the tools that we use as MSP in order to uh, one, be efficient, be proactive, and make sure everybody is safe. And so I was wondering if you can kind of go through what are some of the tools that we use here to do those things.
Yeah. So there's I mean, our toolbox is big.
It is.
um, it's
It is.
big, but we do pick our tools very carefully, and then we have to kind of get used to them. Uh, the thing about tools is it's almost like a surgeon. Most surgeons will have a few tools that they've customized themselves that you cannot buy on the market.
That's
The same
true.
thing happens, with our tools. So even if it is a tool that we purchase, whatever cloud-based tool, every MSP out there always has some sort of customization to it,
That's
right?
correct. Yeah.
Now, um, we have a few tools that we use, like our main management tool is deployed on our servers. It's what they call the on-prem, not the cloud version. And the reason we do that is because that gives us control over how we manage it, when we apply updates, all that. Because if it's a cloud-based tool, we just simply don't get that option. So that's one thing that we keep in house. Now there are some other tools that we are deploying at customer sites. For example, something for multi-factor, something for some sort of authentication. So those might be other cloud-based tools that we don't have access on the back end. Like, when are we going to apply updates? That's out of our control because that's the
Right.
upstream provider who does all that, right? Then we have some tools that are cloud-based. We use them, but it integrates via API to our main management tool, right? For example, our management tool pulls a lot of detailed information about every asset at every customer site. What it does not do is tell us when certain hardware warranties are going to expire. So we use an API that connects to our management tool, pulls that information about the asset, matches it up with the vendor databases, and tells us in one pane of glass when warranties are expiring.
Mm.
Makes
Wow.
life so much easier. I mean, gone are the days of where you have to maintain a spreadsheet and be there plugging in serial numbers and then going somewhere or calling somebody trying to figure out when is the warranty going to expire. None of that. We onboard a customer, it pulls that asset info, it matches up the warranties, and in one pane of glass we see when the warranties are going to expire. So when we do our quarterly business review, we can tell the customer, hey, next quarter you have 3 assets expiring warranties, we need to renew warranties, or maybe 3 assets that are going end of life and we need to just replace those devices. So
Mm.
we do that as well. So so it's all an integrated. Now this is just the warranty piece, right? So just that piece, just to give you an overview, we onboard a customer, our management tool is deployed on one machine in their network. That one machine discovers all the machines in that network, deploys the app on there, deploys the agent. That agent pulls the information, talks back to mothership, which is our management platform.
Mhm.
That mothership now has detailed info about every asset in that customer site. A lot of times, even the customer doesn't know they have certain assets that we discover, right? And then our other cloud-based tool pulls all that info, gives us dates when they were put in place, dates when they're going end of life, dates when their warranties are expiring. We even have the option to where we can actually get warranties on these devices from the single pane of glass. So for example, if it's a HP ProLiant server, warranty is expiring, we can get the warranty for that server within the app. And then if something happens to that hardware, we can create a case directly within this app. So we don't have to pick up the phone, call HP, get a case created, all that. It's all automatic. So what this tool does is not only is it talking via APIs to our management system, but it's also talking via APIs to the vendor, the manufacturer's system as well. So it's a nice go-between. It's a nice glue that holds everything together.
So for the uninitiated, what is APIs?
Oh, so APIs are a way to access other systems without having to code, without creating a lot of code, without having to program. So in
Right.
other words, we don't have to create a program for one system to talk to another system. The systems are designed in a way where they give certain types of access to other systems,
Nice.
right? Now, the reason why we want to standardize this is from a security perspective. We don't want any, Joe Blow software talking to our systems, right? So when we configure this API, there's a lot of things that go into that configuration piece. We don't have to program anything, but we do have to put in, for example, our app IDs, our secret keys. I mean, there's a lot of security stuff that goes into place so that these two systems can now negotiate with each other and talk to each other. Once that thing is set, now we don't have to do this for every customer. This is just a one-time integration. Once that's done, every information, every asset for every customer is automatically pulled in and massaged, and we do whatever we do with that.
Gotcha.
So we have multiple systems like this that talk to each other, and basically it makes our life easier. And that's how we are able to manage about 1,000 nodes in our management right now. And that number is continuously growing. So, a lot of times, even customers ask me and people ask me, how can you manage so many nodes with so few people? You would think you would have like 100, 200, people, 100, 200 people of staff, and I'm like, oh no, we have just a handful. And the reason why we are able to do this is our tool set. We have very good, very seasoned tools, specific tools, but they let us do things very nicely. So in other words, our tools are very sharp.
Now, so I know one of the things that we did recently was we started our own SOC, or Security Operations Center, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so I don't know if people know the significance of that, and I was wondering maybe you can talk a little bit more about that and how that's significant.
Yeah. So, in the old days, we used to have an antivirus. You just deploy that and you call it a day, everything is good. Those days are gone. Then it
Gone.
was with antivirus, you deploy a firewall and everything is good. Those days are gone as well.
Yep.
And then it was you deploy antivirus, you deploy anti-malware, you deploy your border firewall, and then you have another firewall on the device itself. Those days are
Those
gone
days.
as well. So we are way, past those eras. Now, what we have to do is not only do we have to have a good tool on the machine itself to detect anomalies. So, for example, antivirus, anti-malware, behavioral analytics, things like when an application tries to take the space that is assigned to another application. That's bad. We want to block it. We want to block it immediately. And then we want to alert somebody. Now, when this alert is generated, what happens with this alert? Somebody needs to go through this alert and figure out what to do. That's where the SOC comes in. The SOC/SIEM service comes in, right? Another good example is, let's say you have a remote desktop server. Let's say a customer configured it to where it's sitting open on the internet, which there's a lot of servers that are sitting there. That's how a lot of IT providers have gotten hacked and breached, is because they had such servers sitting out in the open. It's a big no-no. And that's why when, all of our customers have some sort of a VPN that they have to connect through to get access to their servers. That's another story. But the thing is, when this server where people connect in, let's say somebody's trying to break in, what are they going to do? They're going to try different usernames and passwords, right? That's easy. Try a few usernames and passwords. Now, when a person tries to log in with incorrect credentials, that information, if you have good security software, it will automatically detect that, block that anomalous behavior. But let's say you don't have that. Somebody now has to go through your server logs and see this attempt, this brute force attempt, right? Somebody was trying to brute force their way into it, trying to guess the usernames and passwords.
Right.
If nobody's looking at those event logs, you should be looking at those event logs, because they are eye-opening. I mean, if your server is sitting out on the internet, or your machine is sitting out on the internet listening for remote connections, you're going to see a lot of hits on this machine. And if nobody's looking, that information, it's like you're an ostrich with your head in the sand. That's what it is, right? That's where the SOC/SIEM service comes into play. We want to go through those logs. Now, that was just an example, an easy example, right? Just so everybody understands. There are examples like, for instance, you might have a SQL server that some of your applications connect to, and somebody's trying to connect to the SQL server, pretending to be one of these applications when they're not, and they're getting denied access a few times. After so many times, somebody needs to pull the plug and say, hey, I'm not going to allow people from so-and-so area to ever connect again, because I know those are bad people, right? How are you going to do that? You have to go through the logs. That's where the SOC/SIEM comes into play, And the other piece of the SOC/SIEM is, let's say your machine found some bad software on it, and let's say the automated tools fail. The automated tools tried to quarantine it, but for whatever reason, they couldn't quarantine this. What's going to happen next? The SOC/SIEM team will come into play, and a human will log into this machine and manually remediate. And they will go as far as boot this machine into safe mode to quarantine that file, because that file might be protecting itself from being touched if it's not in safe mode. And there's been instances like that. So this is where the SOC and SIEM service comes into play. So it's a package. It's like there's an anti-malware component, there's an antivirus component, there is a behavioral analytics component, there is a SOC component, the security operations center. There's a SIEM component, the log management people and these are the people who are the real power behind the engine. These are the experts, and these guys are very hard to find. And that's why we had to go into a different geographic region to build this, is because there are very few resources like that available.
So, two questions. The SOC and SIEM are manned by individuals, correct? It's not an AI-enabled thing.
No.
This is, Yeah. So now, I remember when I first started, we had something called intrusion prevention program. Is that the same, or has the SOC and SIEM taken place of that?
No. So the intrusion prevention system was, way before we started our SOC and SIEM.
Way before, I remember.
Yeah. That. So that component is still there, and so that component still does its thing. So, for example, somebody trying to come in from a from a certain region, and they've never tried to come in before. One day we see them trying to come in so many times, the system is going to automatically block it. They're going to, it's just going to block it and flag it. Now, the SOC component takes that to the next level, where the system blocks it, it logs it, but somebody at the security operations center now reviews it and sees and digs back into it like, oh, hey, this is a known entity attack from this country. We know about it, and now it's happening at this customer too. So now we're basically connecting the dots, right? So now we know, oh, hey, it's China attacking again, like they've done at, with so-and-so tool before, or hey, it's Russia attacking with so-and-so tool. And that's what connects the two things together. For example, I don't know if anybody remembers, but when Russia first went into Ukraine, we saw some attacks coming out from China with Russian signatures on them. That's how we were able to connect the dots together. That's where the power of the SOC and SIEM comes into play, is being able to connect those dots and being able to take that attack all the way to the source. Right? It's one thing just to know, oh, it's an attack, let's block it, and then sit tight, right? That's one thing. The other thing is to detect the attack and then go after where did it actually start. And it may be bouncing between several entities before you get to the source, but we want to know what that source is so that when it happens again in the future, we can kind of track it all the way back. And that's how the security community as a whole works. So we share this information. We share it with, other people out there in the security community so that everybody now knows this signature belongs to this attacker. And if it happens again, we can kind of see what's happening, where it's happening, and then we can do some predictions around that and come up with some more automation where if we know a certain signature, then it's easy. We know the signature, we can build it into certain software which can automatically block that signature, right? But it's a fairly complex system to get to that point. But keep in mind, signatures are only that's not the way to do it. That's why we have behavioral analytics in our software as well, because signature-based detection is only going to detect things that you already know. It's not going to detect things you don't know. That's where the behavioral analytics comes into play.
So it's amazing. I mean, I don't think a lot of people know this. What you're describing, the tools that we have, are those questions that, let's say I own a business, I call you in. Are these the things that are red flags, if you will, if an MSP can't say we have ... And I think here's the reason I ask. For those of you that don't know, one thing about Nadeem, when he talks to business owners, even if they don't come on board with us, he plants these things in their head. And I think it probably gets held to a lot of other, ISPs that are like, or IT service providers. They're probably like, well, where the hell did he get that from? But, are these questions that you would ask a potential provider and it be a red flag if they are not able to answer that?
Not really.
Oh.
Yeah. So I don't go into these details, right? I stay at a much higher level. I stay at what the roles are that any services provider has out there.
Gotcha.
There's a few, there's 5 roles that any MSP out there has. I want to talk to them about those roles. Think of it this way. At the end of the day, what we're talking about, these different tools that we have, they're just tools, right? Like when you take your car in for an oil change, do you ask the service place, hey, what kind of lifts do you have that you're going to use to lift my car to do the oil change? You're not going to ask them, right? So it's the same thing. You don't care what tools we use or what brand they are. What you care about is our process good
That's good.
around that. And that's where the real differentiator is. It's not in their tools. Anybody can go out there and buy all the tools they want. It's not about the people. Everybody has good people. Nobody goes out and hires bad people. Who does that, right? I mean, I've heard that so many times. Oh no, we don't have an issue with security because we hire good people. Have you ever heard somebody say we hire bad people so we need security in place? I've never heard that before, right? So some of these things everybody does it. Like especially when it comes to MSPs, everybody says, "Oh, we're proactive." Is there an MSP out there that will say we're not proactive? Or we don't have the best people. We do the best we can, but our people are just so. Nobody says that, right? So the thing is, it's the process. It's that process that really differentiates one MSP from another MSP.
Gotcha.
Right?
Gotcha.
That process it's a double-edged sword because it has to balance to accommodate anomalies between customers because every business is different. Even in the same industry, I have yet to see two businesses that are identical, even if they're in the same industry. Every business is run differently. Just like every human is different from every other human, every business is different from every other business. So the process has to be flexible enough to accommodate for that, but yet have enough strength to have some of the strict policies in place so that every business at the end of the day is getting the same level of service and the same level of security. Even though businesses are run by very different entities and groups and CEOs and that entire team, right? So it's a very fine balancing act between flexibility and rigidity to get that security in place. And it's a dynamic equilibrium that you have to get into for you to be a successful MSP out there. And the other side of the equation is, what does it ultimately mean for MSPs? Ultimately, it means whether you are a net 20% MSP or a net 30% MSP, right? And that's your net profit. You can't just go out and charge whatever you want. The market is going to weed you out if you try to do that, right? You have to have very efficient processes in place for you to be at a certain profitability level. Because if you don't have those processes in place, the market's going to eat you alive.
Wow.
So there's a lot of things that go into it. Now everybody knows what happens in the MSP world.
Right. No, that's some good information. I just, like I said, I think when what I've noticed is that when you talk to, potential clients and you explain these things to them, these are things that they don't really take into consideration when they're looking for, IT service provider. So it's amazing to see the light bulbs when the dean tells people like, these are the processes. Is your guy doing that now? And they're looking like, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of times, they don't know, they're not getting the right metrics from their MSP or their in-house IT person. So you can't make the right decision until you have the right information.
Yeah, that's it.
If your information is incorrect, you're making all the wrong decisions.
That's it.
That's
it.
Good. So, but yeah, I mean, it's I get excited about those things. I can talk for days. I won't bore people with that. But yeah, it's been we just came out of our quarterly our quarterly business meetings and all the MSPs around the world, we get together, we have peer groups, and we kind of talk to each other and figure out some things, how the industry is moving, what's happening, things like that. And it's been amazing. I mean, we are a very small company, but some of the processes that we have in place are very efficient, and we are very different from when you compare us to other MSPs out there. We are different from the way we have taken some cloud technologies and customized them. And it's a good place to be in, because once you have that custom product that nobody has, then it's like, hey, if somebody needs that, where are they going to go? There is nobody that has that. It's almost like, hey, if you want a Mercedes, where are you going to go? There's only one Mercedes, right? I mean, or if you want a Toyota, where are you going to go? There is only one Toyota. And that's what it is, when you want some of these cloud-based technologies, where are you going to go? There is nobody else that can do this. You can try to buy individual components, but nobody puts it together like we have it. And at that price point that we have it. Why and how can we get at that price point? It's because we are running so efficiently that we can be at that price point. And some businesses do this for a little bit because they use the brute force method where, they might have one person who understands everything in and out, and that one person can just brute force it, stay up at night and get it done, right? That's not scalable. You have to be able to give this information out to multiple people in the organization so that it's a process around that, not just one person and in one person's head. That's what I'm going to do. Somebody told me a long time ago, they said, hey, Nadeem, always do repeatable work. So whenever you're doing something, always make sure that it's repeatable. So document it. You need to make a video of it, You need to make some graphs, some charts, whatever it is that you do it in a way that it can be very easily repeatable. And how did we implement it? A small example. I won't bore you with detail, just a very small example. When we create a cloud server for somebody, we don't just create it from scratch, right? We script it out. All we have to do is plug in the variables, run the script, and boom, it creates everything for us, right? Yeah. The reason we do that is because it's repeatable work. Now, that script, any one of our engineers can plug the variables in, run that script, boom, that whole infrastructure is stood up. Now, we can run this script, we can set up one piece of infrastructure for one company in a day, or we can set up 100 companies in a day. Scale is not an issue anymore because we have it all scripted out. Now, if we were doing it manually, yeah, it would take us, days and days to spin up 100 infrastructures for 100 different companies, right? Yeah. But with scripting, it's just a few clicks for us and boom, it's done.
Always different.
So I think we've bored people enough with this, but yeah, I mean it's interesting, times with all the integrations, the APIs. They're like building blocks. You can build anything you want. You have the building blocks in place. You just put them together differently, and that's what it is. When you're shopping for an MSP, what are you looking for? Are you looking for a castle? An MSP has a castle. Or are you looking for a tank? An MSP has a tank. The building blocks for both of these are the same. It's just how these MSPs have put these building blocks together, these Lego blocks, to build what you want, right? So, and I don't have a problem when I talk to some people and I educate them about this, about the roles any MSP has, and then they go with a competitor of ours, which it actually happened. I explained it to somebody and then they went with a competitor of ours, and that competitor happened to be in our peer group because, I mean, how are they going to talk the same way, right? So it was, I mean, I wasn't mad or anything. I mean, it was like, I was talking to the owner and I was like, man, you remember that customer? And he was like, yeah, that was ours. I educated him. I helped you out, man.
Wow, seriously?
It's a small world.
It's a very small world.
Wow. Yeah, it was funny, but no, yeah, I mean that was it, and they knew that somebody in our peer group had talked to this customer because the roles they knew the roles, the 5 roles, and they were like, wow, how did you know the 5 roles that any IT company has out there? It took us years, 20, 30 years to figure this out. How do you know? So they knew that somebody in that peer group had educated
Had to
them.
educate them. Yeah. Yeah. You make disciples however way you can. So, I mean, people are listening. That works. That works.
Yeah, well, if you're interested in those roles, we have several videos that where we talked about those roles and we kind of
Yep.
laid them out and diagrammed them out. Just be cautious of the downward spiral of death of support.
Yep.
But other than that, it's all good. And I think with that, we'll call it a day, Mac. We've taken about 30 minutes. I think that's nice and sweet.
Yep.
And everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Have a good weekend.